Merry meet, Annie here. I am substituting this week for Eric on the pagan perspective topic, which is a discussion about working versus ritual pentacles. And a viewer sent us in a question after they had read a reference to those two things by Dorothy Morrison in her book, The Craft. And I've taken that quote from that page so you can see what the viewer was referencing, and I'll slip it in here before I continue. I'm going to be answering specifically what it means to me, not knowing a thing really about what it means to her, and her book doesn't really go into it too much further. So she references a working pentacle and a ritual pentacle. I came to the conclusion that the ritual pentacle that she is referring to is the paten, and that for some reason she does not refer to it as the paten being the tool, the symbol of earth and spirit, which resides on a traditional Wiccan's altar. Now I have both of mine here by me. I hope when I hold them up it'll be something you can see. The word paten is interesting, and one of the reasons it may have gone in of popularity is the etymology of the word. It is a word that describes the plate upon which the Eucharist is served. And that was not an offensive or confusing term to some of us who have been in the craft for a long time, because we did have an awful lot of words and descriptions of things which were hangovers from when either we or our families were going to Christian churches. So we did not find it unusual that we would refer to a pagan symbol on our altar with a word that was used regarding serving the Eucharist. And one reason is the Eucharist, that word itself, has to do with thanks and gratitude, and then extended to the idea of offering. So the paten, the ritual pentacle on a traditional Wiccan's altar, is a plate, or at least something that is a disc that can hold things. Things can be sat upon it. Now I have two, and this is my oldest. It is my altar pentacle. It is the tool which came to me during the study of earth, and to which I am bonded, and to which I align magics of earth. I put things on it that need to be blessed. I put things on it that need to be cleansed. It represents earth, and in its aspect of all 5 points, it's the elements and the quintessence of the 5th element. So it becomes a spiritual center of my altar also. This pentacle, it's getting rather worn. Pentacles will almost always show that they have been used, and used with respect. There'll be wax on them, they'll be burnt, there'll be stains from oils, and red wine does terrible things to our patens. Mine is wood. Now you will read that patens, or altar pentacles, should be made out of, and there'll be a list of things. This is what it must be made out of. Now, my experience has been over the years, it doesn't matter what it's made of. It's the intent, it's your relationship with it, it's what you do with it, it's what energy it draws, what energy it centers, what energy comes from it. Now the first patens I saw, this would have been in the 70s, were almost always wax. And one reason is they were inscribed. You could mark them, and you could change the markings. And covens had their own markings, specific markings that would be on a paten. And I think I've got a picture someplace of, let me see if I can find it. I think I have a picture, probably downloaded offline, of what a marked paten may have looked like in my earlier years. So if I look down, it's because, as all of you know who have tools that you have bonded to and become close to, that when you hold them, things happen, and energy comes through them, and it's an entity that you're holding. It's more than a physical object. It's something you are paired with at the energetic level. Now, paten in the sense of plate is the offering plate upon which the an offering can be made. It could be your cakes and wine could be put on it. Now that doesn't mean that I would take this paten and put that kind of offering directly on it. But I do have a second paten. Not everybody does. I'm just a collector of patens, I guess. Collector, but I have two. I have this gorgeous glass one that was made for me by a friend. And that becomes the plate upon which I make those kind of damp or wet offerings, which I then set upon my ritual pentacle. Now some people have patens that are made of metal or glass or clay or some material that lends itself well to having damp offerings put on them. And I have always used my two. Offerings are also made in the sense if you're doing candle magic. The candle that's set, when the candle is set right upon what's called the witch's sea shield, which is the center of your pentagram on your pentacle, a candle placed there and your working done from there increases the power of that offering because you are making it from what my first priest called the sacred stone, which is, I don't know anybody else who's ever called an altar pentacle or a ritual pentacle that, but he did. And that was something that resonated with me, that when you think of, in your imagination, a place of offering where you might lay something, his calling it the sacred stone is a terminology that stayed with me over all these years. Now also in old school Wicca, so we're going back to when I was first learning to cast circles, we cast our circle using not only our blade, but at the quarters we offered the pentacle when we called on, in some circles we called on the elements using it, in others we called on the guardians using it. Now I, to this day, will sometimes still do that. I tend to use my blade more than not now, but I was still. And that, in that case, it's simply a matter of offering it, truly offering it to the quarters. And it becomes a portal then, which is the same thing that casting the flaming pence will do, as far as establishing and opening the portal to your quarters. So I'm going to assume that when Dorothy Morrison refers to ritual pentacle, that she is referring specifically to the tool, which is the paten. In my mind, it's not called the ritual pentacle, it is called the paten. But I do think very often, nowadays, we see pentacle used for several different things. Now she talks about the working pentacle. Now I'm going to assume that when she refers to the working pentacle, she is referring to the sigil of the pentacle. So any time at which you inscribe or draw or anoint, anything you do which creates the pentacle, that is not your tool, but something you are creating. One of the differences I would say between the tool, which is the, in her terms, a ritual pentacle, and the working pentacle in her terms, which I would think of as the pentacle, is that the pentacle, when you imbue it. So as you are using it, if you want to mark something for protection, or if you want to use it for healing, marking a body with it, all the many, many different ways you can use the power of the four elements and quintessence as a blessing or a cleansing or a shield, or endless ways you can use it, that you are envisioning it, empowering it, creating it. You are deciding what it will be, and important in working magics, how long it will be. And it's like you're bringing that to life. You are creating that energy. For me, being a traditionalist, the difference is that my paten is what it is. We came to know each other and bonded, and when I studied earth, and it became my tool for earth, and eventually my tool for earth and spirit, it has its powers. They're locked within it. They are what they are. It is almost a creature. It's an entity. It is something with a life of its own. As all of our tools in traditional Wicca, when we are trained in elemental balancing and take on the tools that represent those elements, they become an entity with which we are partnered. There is power within them, and there is power within them because of our relationship with them, in addition to what they hold on their own. So to me, a difference between the, using Dorothy's terms, the ritual pentacle and the working pentacle is there's a completeness about the ritual pentacle. It is what it is. It doesn't change. You bring things to it, and it reacts to them. It creates, or it destroys, or it does what you have asked it to do in that relationship. Using the pentacle as symbol in the air, anointing, inscribing, even raising incense into the pattern of the pentacle, writing on a piece of paper, drawing it in dirt, very powerful, drawing it in the sand and watching a wave take it away. All those ways of the working pentacle. You imbue it. You decide what it will be. You bring the power to it. It will be the power of earth, or of spirit, or of both. But you bring it to it and you decide what it will be, and you also decide how long it will be. It's more of an ephemeral thing. It accomplishes a task and it's gone, as sigils do. What I cannot answer for our viewer is, she mentions that, I think it was the working pentacle, she talks about it being black on one side and white on the other. I don't have an experience of that. I don't know if that's from her Georgian roots that comes from. I have not yet run into a pentacle that was color-coded, so that's something. She didn't write a lot about what that meant. I have a feeling it has to do with whether energies are received or sent. So I hope that's helpful. I can tell you that there's a very distinct difference to me and from the teachings of my tradition between the paten and the pentacle. And I think it's probably similar to what she's describing, if not the same. From my traditional background, I think the most powerful thing I can stress is the difference is the completeness of the paten, of the tool, of the relationship with it, of its existence and what it does, and the power that it holds continually. It's not activated. We may re-bless it, we may rededicate it, but that's strengthening our relationship to it. It is not actually changing it. It is already complete. And the difference of the energy of the working pentacle is designed for a purpose, put out there for a length of time, and done with. So I wish you, as always, mirth and reverence. Mary Part.